of the questions that we had, just generally, like how do you apply for funds? What are the chances of getting funding? And I guess on a more practical level, average amount of money that you might be given to live on if you were granted a stipend, but how manageable is it to sort of do your PhD if you have funding and if it's sort of average? I don't know who to go to first. George looks like he's ready though. I don't know that.
Generally speaking,
who's best to speak to first?
It generally depends where you get your funding from. I mean, the basic rate for UKRIs are around £16,000–17,000 a year to live on. But if you get into one of the welcome programs or a BHF funded program, then their stipends are slightly higher. So it depends on where you get your money from. But I mean, I don't know how easy it is to live on that. You'll have to ask the students.
Students, right, okay, who's jumping in? How easy is it to live off your stipend you get every year?
If I may, the stipend we get is not, for me, at least personally, I found it a very nice sum as money, but to be honest, it's not something that it's very good because you don't pay council tax, first of all. That's the first, and for me, it's very, very nice because I can afford living on my own. You don't pay tax, which is also a bonus. And you have all the student, how you call it in English when you have less prices. Anyway.
Oh, you have student discounts.
Discounts, yes, sorry.
Yes.
I forgot how to English sometimes, sorry. You have student discounts in everything, so it's very convenient. But the money are good. Not industry good, but good.
And I suppose we did also have a question which was about applying for the funding. Like, do you have any tips for what that process is actually like? Is it kind of like applying for a PhD all over again when you're applying for funding, or what kind of things would they ask you?
Well, if I do, just like to start with the Brexit situation, which is not helping. You know, EU students were classed as home students here until the end of this month. And then that's going to change, and we don't really know what the university is going to do yet. It still hasn't made a decision. So, you know, it was anyone from the EU could apply for any of the programs that were in Glasgow University, most of them. So that's changed. We don't really know what the university is going to do, but EU students will now be classed as international students after the end of the year, unfortunately. As I say, we'll find out what the university does. But you know, there's lots of places you can apply for funds, and the chances are, depends on where you apply. Some of them, the chances are higher than the other ones. There's different places, depending on, you can get it from your government, you can get it from some of the awarding bodies, but there's a whole list. If you go into the scholarships page, there's a list. I don't really know what the percentage chances of you getting them are.
Perfect. And I think as well, we did have a specific question which was about SAAS, which we've checked that, and they don't offer PhD funding. It only goes up to masters, just in case the person who asked that specific question is watching. And we also have, sorry.
If you've got a disease specific area in mind, then there's loads of places that you can apply for money. Say you're interested in Alzheimer's, then you can go to Alzheimer's Research UK and get a supervisor who's got a link in there. But the same with heart disease, you can, you know, try and get into, there's quite a few places. So there are charities that fund disease related research as well. You should look up if you've got a disease in mind.
Okay. And we did have questions as well about sort of the practicalities of applying for your PhD. So a couple of people actually have asked about sort of gaps between your master's and your PhD. Is that a big issue? If you have, say, a year where you're doing something else, will it go against you in any way? Just look like it's a no.
No,
so that's good.
It doesn't, you know, in many ways, I'd encourage people to take a year out and go and do something else. get some life experience before, because when you start a PhD, you know, it's quite an intense training course. So yeah, that should not go against you. Absolutely not. You know, we are
Okay,
as Peter said, we're interested in if we think you're good enough with qualification wise, we're interested in your personality more than we are your qualifications.
That's great. So definitely possible to still look at these things even if you're a year or two out of your masters or possibly beyond.
And we
also
have
had a
PhD
question.
students that are really of a huge variety of ages. Some people do the PhD quite late on in their career. So yeah.
Okay. That's definitely good to know. And we also had a question which was about sort of part-time remote PhDs, which I guess more and more people might be asking about remote, given a lot of people are working remotely now without possibly planning for it. So is there anywhere people can go for information on sort of remote PhDs, if that's an option for certain areas in the sciences? I don't know.
It's not an option at the moment that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Although with the COVID and everything being online, and we're now doing all the vivas are online, the thesis submission is now online. And I was against all that, and it's worked like a dream. And you know, so okay. I think the next step will be remote PhDs, but it's something that we're still exploring at the moment.
So I guess, like Lauren was saying, maybe that's something almost good or different that will come out of COVID, but I guess we'll wait and see on that one. Okay, that's good to know. I just wanted to check in. I can see there's quite a lot of Q&As come up in here. I think we've answered this one where unfortunately EU citizens will be going to international fees rather than home after Brexit, which is the end of this month.
But the university may make provision. We're still to find out, so that's still up in the air. There's a big meeting next week, I think, so we should find out very soon about that.
Okay. What about start and end dates? So a lot of our students might currently be on their studies, or they might currently be on a master's, for example, which is now scheduled to end in November because of the COVID putting everything back. Traditionally, I guess a lot of PhDs start in September, is that right? So is that going to have an impact?
PhDs can start anytime. A lot of them do start in October, and it's good to get everyone in and do the induction and things like that. But you know, our numbers creep up throughout the year. So we've got people who start in January, people start throughout the year. So there's no starting and finishing point for a PhD. You've got to do it within the 4 years, but it can start and finish at any time during the year.
Okay, so there's definitely flexibility there.
Yeah, we don't have starting one degree before they finish another degree. You have to finish your master's before you start your PhD. As George says, the starting date of PhD can be flexible, but you cannot do 2 degrees at once.
Okay. Right. So we're also getting a few questions about sort of the requirements, I suppose, to get onto a PhD. Obviously, it's going to vary, I guess, depending on what you're looking at, but is there sort of a minimum requirement? Some students have been saying, you know, if you, as a 2-1 degree enough, is a merit at master's enough? Hazel's nodding, so that sounds good, but anything that you want to maybe chat about for the sort of requirements for a PhD?
No, generally speaking, it's a 2-1 if you come out your undergraduate, and a master's degree will get into PhD as long as it's a reasonable master's. That's right, Hazel.
Okay. And I think we've also had a few people concerned about research experience. So one attendee has said they don't have any research experience, can they apply for a PhD? Another student has said that because they've just started their master's, they haven't sort of done the project yet, but can they apply for a PhD when they don't yet have that experience? And would you have any advice for people in that position?
Both absolutely fine to apply for a PhD, and as Joyce said, the earlier you get into that, your mind that you want to do a PhD, then you need to take the time and find the right one, and it does, and find the right funding, and it does take a while. It's not instant. So absolutely, if you've done a course where you haven't been in any lab work, that's absolutely fine. Remember, all of the masters this year, the wet projects were dry projects because of COVID. So they'll be just as valuable as the wet projects were. So absolutely. And even if you haven't, as we mentioned before, even if you haven't got expertise in the subject area, but you've decided that you want to do a PhD in a different subject area, if your qualifications are good and your temperament and your personality and you show enthusiasm, then you can get a PhD in a very different subject area, because it is a training course, and you will learn a lot in the first year, general stuff, and then you'll specialise. So yeah, because it's so long, you get a long time to develop. So it's yeah. So just apply for what you're interested in. That's the number one thing. You've really got to love it. You really want to get out of bed to do it in the morning. That's the number one thing.
Perfect. I'm just having a little scan through, because I remember that someone posted a question here that they said was for Archie.
Yep.
So and there's another one that's just come in that I thought might be one for Archie as well. So I guess we can start with that one. It was, are there tips that you would recommend with regards to writing a personal statement and academic CV? I know you've obviously given lots of resources that people can look to, but I suppose, is there anything else you wanted to add to that about?
Yes, I would say these are just resources rather than templates. So you shouldn't slavishly follow an example or a template. These are really just ideas with some formatting, but there are some rules of thumb that are kind of built in. So with an academic CV, it's very important to front load it with your academic experience and research experience. Also, what you offer in addition to the academic community. So, a lot of PhD students do part-time lab demoing, teaching of undergraduates. So if you've already got some teaching or tutoring experience, that's good to put in. So it's also about you as a good all-round candidate for academic life in that particular school or college, and teaching is part of that. With a personal statement, it's kind of a mix of your skills and relevant experience, your research background, your motivation, why you're interested in a particular PhD area, but also the institution that you're applying to. And it's also good, I feel, to put in something about kind of your mid-term career objectives. So why do you want to do a PhD in relation to what you might want to do after that? And of course, you don't need to be ultra specific about that, because as you experience a PhD, your ideas are likely to change a bit, but it's still good, I think, just to put in something that's more long-term motivationally, just to give academics a steer on that.
I think that's very, very important. Sell a vision of what you want to do and where you want to go, because you're up against a lot of people. You will be amazed at the number of personal statements I read that say, oh, I just really want to do research. I really want to do something in the lab. That's not a reason to do a PhD. You need to sell a journey. Why are you interested in the area? And where do you want to go once you've been trained by this great university? That's what you need to. Archie's exactly right.
Okay, and I think, Archie, we've had one more for you as well, just come in about the practicalities of booking a careers appointment. It looks like it's quite busy in the portal. You mentioned that there's more every morning. Can you see the question? Sorry, I'll stop reading it out if you can see it.
Well, I saw a question at some point which was about can you book a career coaching appointment for revising a personal statement? So I saw that one maybe about 20 minutes ago. So I'll try and answer that, and then go into the appointment system a bit more. So yes, career coaching is a very loose general term, and we have all sorts of conversations that all come under the heading of career coaching, and sometimes it's about postgrad options or career areas, or cluelessness, dare I say, that some people just don't have a clue even now what they want to do. So can we help? So all that's fine, but also anything to do with the selection and recruitment and application process is also fine. That's all just under the general heading. I would say that we do track unmet demand just because of the technology we have in place now. So we can actually see where there are pressure points with demand. So we can see students trying to get appointments and they're unsuccessful on that occasion, that goes into the metrics. And we do try and respond to that. But also, if you're trying repeatedly to get an appointment and they are all just full up, I would maybe approach the admin team or even email a careers manager directly, and we can sort something out.
Okay. Do you have do you know what the contact is for that? I'm not sure what is there a general careers email address?
I would just put an admin at careers.glasgow.ac.uk.
Perfect. Okay, I'll make a note of that and we can put that in the chat.
I think that's wrong.
Oh, that doesn't look
So
right.
I think
No, I know, I've just seen that myself. I've not done that right. It was admin.careers.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. So for everyone, it should be the second one, not the first one.
so I can see that we've had a question which is about scheduled PhD programs with short placements. I'm not entirely sure. Do you know about these, George? Because I'm not sure you know about this. That's fine. I wasn't sure if it might be best to recommend that that person get in touch with the contact on the page about that. But
well, the MVLS DTP is a college-funded doctoral training program which has 2 placements. They are placements actually in different labs within the college. We also have the industrial placement PhD, which is a PhD scheme in conjunction with industry, and there's a place they offer a placement in an industrial environment. And we also have a thing called iCase PhDs, which are funded by the Medical Research Council, and again they're in conjunction with industry, and they have a 3-month industrial placement. So a rotation is a good thing because you learn more skills, and a placement in industry is particularly, well, there's many skills you can pick up from that, but it's particularly useful if you plan to go into industry after you do your PhD.
okay, and so is that likely to be flexible around the quoted start dates given of September and October?
Well, we have on occasion extended start dates for people depending on the circumstances. Yeah. So if it's
it'd be worth getting in touch.
Illness,
yeah.
Yeah. If you get on the selecting the shortlist and you get selected, then that's the point at which you would ask that question.
Okay. And can international students get a fully funded PhD program in the university?
Silence. I think that was sort of covered with the Brexit answer. It's just a little bit.
Yeah, it's difficult.
So that's still difficult. Right. Okay.
There are some, UKRI funded PhDs are now allowed 30% international students on them, and so we're allowed to take 30% overseas students on PhD positions funded by UKRI, and that means that we'll have to find the difference between the home and the EU fees. So we have MRC funded PhD places that are being advertised at the moment, and a third of them will be open to internet. Well, I'll be allowed to take a third international students. There's also things like the Wellcome Trust PhD in molecular parasitology, and they do take international students as well. I think we've got a couple of African students on it per year, and I think we're allowed a certain percentage international students. So yeah, there are some, but they're limited.
Okay. So just before, I know we're running really short on time now, but I wanted to also ask, we had so many questions about just more generally, how best to prepare yourselves as an honours student or as a master's student for going into a PhD, how to be a better candidate. And I thought that this might be a good question, partly for George, but also for our students who've already given a lot of advice. But I suppose if there was, anything, if you had someone in front of you saying, what would you recommend doing whilst you're in this position in your master's that would maybe help you make a difference? I wondered if it might be good to just go round our students one last time.
I'll say one thing before the students go. I'm not going to steal their thunder. Go for it.
Get to know the supervisors.
Get to know the supervisors.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what we always recommend anyway when people are emailing in.
Students a lab and you get a meeting
contact them.
supervisor and you find a report. Yeah, that's what I'd say, but I'm sure the students will give you different advice.
Okay.
I was actually cheeky enough to ask my supervisor in a phone call what she was going to ask me in the official interview, which turned out to be very beneficial. I wouldn't recommend, but she quite liked it. So it kind of, but what George said about building up the rapport, because if you're being called to interview, the chances are your credentials are good enough. So really try and impress them personally, I think is kind of very important. And then more generally, try and focus on experiences versus grades, I think, because everybody that's applying is going to have a good grade. Whereas if you have kind of relevant experience or something that shows that you're interested, it kind of puts you above everybody else. But that's just what I think.
No, that's great. Do any of our other students want to offer any last minute tips for students who might be just at the end of their undergraduate or just starting their masters? I think that's where most of our viewers are at just now.
I was gonna say, sometimes it's good to have like physical copies of your work that you've done, you know, like summer project write-ups and stuff like that. Sometimes I find in interviews they were really interested if they could see your results, like graphs and pictures if it was relevant. So like as you go along, maybe just like if you've done a summer project in your first year and you're just about to go and like start applying for PhDs, I would maybe kind of try and like update it in terms of like the language that you're using, like make sure, you know, you're not changing anything that's in there apart from just making it more like, I don't know, more at your level that you're at now, if that makes sense. Like I find that helps, but I don't know if that's relevant.
Yeah, no, that sounds helpful.
If I can say something about the interview, since it was mentioned twice, is that when you're going to interview, you will have studied about your topic and try to prepare yourself about questions. But don't be afraid to say that you don't know something. It's better to say that, you know what, I don't know that, and maybe it's your fault, maybe it's not, because something very, very focused and specific, but trying to guess an answer and make yourself sound really, really, I don't want to say stupid, but it's the only word that comes to mind. It's worse, I think, at least my personal opinion. And from different interviews I had, not only for PhD in general, that if you don't know something, be honest and say, I don't know, I will read about it and I can come back to you. But although you should have been prepared better, but trying to guess an answer and go out of the way completely, it's even worse in the eyes, I think, for a supervisor. But that's my personal experience as an interviewee.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So just to finish off,
Joyce was going to say something.
Oh, sorry, Joyce. That we were finishing there.
No, we've got more.
Will be like if you already decided to go with this supervisor for a PhD, it's also good that you can, if it's okay, then you can do a master project with him or her, your potential supervisor, so you can check on the whole lab environment, and then you can see if you get along with the whole team, so that you will know if you are going to be happy in this group, so that you have like expectation of your in the future 3 or 4 years life, how it going to look. Otherwise, if like you finding yourself is struggling in this area or in this group, it's not too late to reject the offer or make some changes. So it might be also a good opportunity to do that. And then you can ask them, and the supervisors, they tend to prefer that you have a short-term project with them, so they can also check how your level is, and then they can make a better plan for you, and then you will be a step ahead before other people.